This is Actar's Reviews, from anime to figures and beyond.
Hey, this is Actar and welcome to another episode of Actar's Figure Reviews. And in this episode, it is my great pleasure to be able to present to you, from Digimon Savers, the warp evolving Gaomon to Mirage Galgamon figure. Oh yes, they say that figure collecting is one part dedication and one part luck. And I couldn't agree more. As luck would have it, I managed to pick this guy up mint in sealed box, but I could not open the box up to review him for you guys. So what's the big deal about this figure? Well, for those of you who have yet to watch my warp evolving Agumon to Shine Greymon figure review, a quick recap. Essentially, the Savers toy line was supposed to consist of 6 figures in total. However, the final 3 warp evolving figures were cancelled due to poor toy sales, and this figure was one of them. Fortunately, these 3 figures were released in Korea to tie in with the Korean airing of the series, and because of this, they are extremely rare and sought after by fans the world over. Getting straight into the review, once again the box is surprisingly the same as the US ones, save for all the text being in Korean. On the front, a windowed display showing off the figure inside, and the flap on the top featuring the transformation process, and the sides and the back advertising the other figures and products in the line. So let's open this up and take a look at the contents inside. In addition to an instruction sheet, we get a plate that interacts with the Digivice IC. Again, I don't own a Digivice IC yet, so I can't show you guys how this works. Right off the bat, Gaomon doesn't look all that good. Proportion-wise, his head and body are about the right size, but his boxing gloves are way too small and his legs are way too big. In addition, the legs are set way too high up and now protrude outwards from the sides of his waist. Another blatant inaccuracy is his eyes. Just look at them. Those are not Gaomon's eyes. Not only are the whites of his eyes completely black, the eyes themselves are pointing in different directions, making him look spaced out and somewhat derpy. The tails of the headband that he sports are overly large, and the tails are billowing out at a rather silly angle. The overall colour of the fur is also slightly lighter than what is seen on screen. This is unfortunately necessary because Mirage Galgamon's armour is mostly this colour. Still, all that being said, it's a really decent portrayal of the character, which is more than I can say for a couple of other Digimon figures that I've seen. Kibble in Gaomon mode is, honestly speaking, not that bad as all of it is relegated to the back. Not to mention, it's not an entire alt mode hanging off the back situation, so I'm willing to be even more forgiving. Moving on to articulation, it's far from impressive. The headband pieces are supposed to be pegged into his head, but they can be posed somewhat and might even look better when flat up against his sides like that. Due to the transformation, he has 0 head articulation. There isn't a waist joint, and again, due to the kibble on his back, the legs don't get a whole lot of movement, save for side to side, which is pretty useless in my opinion. His feet, however, can move quite a fair bit. Only Gaomon's arms are well articulated. They can move forwards and backwards at the shoulders as they are on a ball joint, a swivel joint above the elbow itself bends, and there is a wrist joint. One thing to note is that when transformed properly, the shoulder joints are actually really limited as they sit close to his body. Pulling the shoulder joints outwards frees them up and restores a great deal of movement to his arms. Comparing him side by side with Agumon, they're about the same height in the show, but here Agumon's a little taller. Alrighty, hopefully, just like with Agumon, this Gaomon figure will be able to win us over in its evolved form. Digital Charge Overdrive! We first start off by disconnecting the 2 headband tails from the sides of his head. We take the shoulders that are on a double hinge joint and fold them up into the sides of his head. We then lift up the top of Gaomon's head and rotate this entire back section around. Gaomon's headband tails peg into the side of Mirage Galgamon's chest plate and become Mirage Galgamon's arm armor. Flip out his gill claws and rotate them around. Fold down Mirage Galgamon's chest plate to hide Gaomon's face. To complete the upper body, peg in Gaomon's boxing gloves into the arm armor via these 2 points. And we do the same for the other side. Moving on to the legs, we first rotate the entire lower body around. Disconnect the shin guard, extend the leg, and lock them in at these 2 points. Clip the shin guard back into place. We do the same for the other side. Fold out Mirage Gargomon's toes and fold in Galmon's. And last but not least, push on this rod to reveal Mirage Gargomon's head. Okay, now that was a really fun transformation. I absolutely love how Galmon's head becomes Mirage Gargomon's chest. As for the figure itself, the Mirage Gargomon mode is a huge improvement over the Galmon mode, as it's almost a dead ringer of its on-screen counterpart. He's known as a Beast Knight Digimon, and his design complements that designation beautifully. His head incorporates design elements from a knight's helmet, and his chest armor is that of an animal's head. The molded details are unequivocally gorgeous. The panel lines, individual crescent moon rivets, and forearm crests are all beautifully rendered. On first impressions, he looks great. That's until you begin to notice the smaller details, or the lack thereof. First of all, the digital hazard symbol is missing from the nose of his chest, and that's kind of important in conveying just how much of a threat he is. Also, the lack of a cape is really disappointing, as a cape plays a huge part in making his character look more regal, imposing and dynamic. A cloth cape like the one that came with Dukemon or Omegamon would have been brilliant. Also, despite all of that great detail, I can't help but feel that this figure still looks rather plain. And I think I know why. Something that I neglected to mention in the original Shine Greymon figure review is that the prototypes were somewhat different from the final production figures. For instance, the Agumon faceplates could split in two in the Shine Greymon mode to better resemble his segmented cybernetic wings. In Mirage Gargomon's case, he had a much better paint job. Well, to be fair, I could only spot two major differences: the more show-accurate darker blue on the head, and the silver and dark blue on his upper thigh armor. Yet, I contest that this additional paint is what breaks up the monotony of all that blue and allows the figure to shine. And yes, the digital hazard symbol is there on the prototype. In terms of articulation, save for the legs and waist, it's pretty bad, though that's only true if you do everything according to the instructions. Getting the good stuff out of the way, the legs have full forwards and back and side to side motion, and a beautiful 90-degree knee bend, or even more than 90-degree knee bend. We do have rotation below the knee, but only if you unclip the shin armor from the rest of the leg first. The feet can move up and down slightly as well. Also, as mentioned, he does have a fully unhindered waist joint. Now, on to the bad. First off, the head. There is no head articulation, unless you do a little bit of tweaking to literally unlock it. As we've seen, the head is attached to a little rod that is necessary for the transformation. It is because of this rod that the head is stuck in place, as it catches on this hole. If you push the rod all the way in, the head can actually move from side to side with no problems whatsoever. There is a trade-off. Now you have to deal with getting the rod back out. To do this, you'll have to use a toothpick or similar implement to get the rod back into place. It's not a pretty solution, but it's one nonetheless. Frankly speaking, the arm articulation is nothing short of atrocious. With Mirage Gargomon's main weapons being his Gale Claws, good arm articulation is imperative in getting him to recreate a majority of his signature poses. For them to be so limited, it's almost criminal. Let me explain. I do really appreciate this layered armored look. However, this is really problematic. As we've already seen, Galmon's arms are very well articulated. However, Mirage Gargomon's arm armor pieces go over Galmon's arms and act like a brace. As there are now two sets of joints to contend with, physically, getting them to work together is nigh impossible. His shoulder articulation only consists of forwards and back, and there's hardly any elbow movement. All is not lost, because after playing around with the figure for a while, I have found a way to unlock the true potential of his arms. Simply leave the arm armor unpacked from the chest plate and ta-da! We have freed his arms up tremendously, and this is where Galmon's excellent arm articulation saves the day. The arms can now rotate, move in and out, bend at the elbow, and even move in and out at the elbow. Now don't get me wrong, the articulation still isn't that great, and it does look a little bit weird from certain angles in certain poses, but it's much better than what we had before. With all of that articulation unlocked, you can actually get him into quite a number of kick-ass poses, be it standing tall and proud, attacking with his Gale Claws, or firing his Full Moon Blaster. Of course, this still doesn't correct the horrendous kibble problem. As you've probably already noticed, the backs of Mirage Gargomon's arms are the tails of Galmon's headband. Yup, it's the old half and half. Now, this is not that unheard of when it comes to Digimon toys. On the back of Dukemon's lance was Gilmon's tail, but that wasn't that big of an issue because it was a single static piece. Here, the red rears its ugly head in pretty much every pose you set him in. Not to mention, the fact that we only get to see half of his signature arm crests adds insult to injury. Also, did I forget to mention that Galmon's boxing gloves are clearly visible? There is no attempt to hide them whatsoever, and it just ruins the look even more. Thankfully, the only other piece of kibble is the top of Galmon's head hanging off his butt. My goodness, it's a literal butt head. Other than that, the figure is relatively kibble-free, which I have to admit is a rather impressive feat. The design comes off as clean, refined, and polished, just like a knight should be. In conclusion, you know what? Despite his many flaws, I can't bring myself to hate this figure. I love this guy. Galmon in the show was a charming and suave character, and Mirage Gargomon's design is nothing short of phenomenal. This figure does a decent job in getting both modes across, and the transformation is ingenuitive and fun. Yes, he does have a ton of problems, but I take solace in the fact that the greatest issues with regard to his articulation can be fixed with a little bit of creative thinking. All in all, I won't recommend that you spend the time and money to track this figure down unless you're a die-hard Galmon/Mirage Gargomon fan or Savers fan. However, if you already have the Shine Greymon figure, I would kind of recommend you pick this one up if you do get the chance. But that's only because he poses extremely well together with Shine Greymon, and it really does look like the two were made for each other. I personally had a ton of fun recreating all those fight scenes. So, this is Hector saying, see you guys in the next episode.